components that use a web front end. It's moving rapidly in that direction in a couple of areas. There are ways of using VistA through browser and so forth. You're just using CPRS through a browser environment, but natively there isn't a full web front end. There was a question earlier on about what functions does VistA support. The clinical functions that and there are also, the VA also has integrated all the back office and financial components. There are some of those that are available through the Freedom of Information Act, but they are VA specific because obviously business rules for financial processing and so on vary between even between the VA and the private sector. There's been, as far as I know, as far as implementation goes, there hasn't been any that I know of in the UK. There was an early attempt in Ireland several years ago. There's a question about how applications applications get integrated to VistA. We've external lab
administration.
we successfully accredited VistA with CCHIT certification in the United States, and WorldVistA is in the process of pursuing the new meaningful use accreditation. Question about, has VistA been used post-traumatic stress disorder and other experiences? There's a large population of patients that
enabling the support for remote home monitoring and home care?
There's already quite a bit of support for that in the VA. The VA, I'm sure, involved in driving home which integrates with this capability so that veterans and can actually between VistA and different
For
another graph that I wasn't able to show. And that's been driven Um, 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 care to essentially, anyone else from the VA that's attending these, and that information is then um, platform where all the different training materials and so on are provided. At a lower level, we've got, Matt mentioned templates. What happens is templates and reminders can get developed at a local level, and as they measure the I mentioned the different research facilities that are mining VistA data and then feeding back to um, the developers of policy and procedures and processes and so forth. And then some of these things then get translated into support systems in VistA and so on. So there's a whole myriad of methods that the feedback loop works within the VA. The VistA developers had their own discussion forum from the get-go for over 25 years now and so forth. And all of these things, this fabric acts as kind of the medium for making this happen. But application support and how and do you provide these services? I'm assuming that the U is and from the community and testing them and then integrating them. Support for applications is provided through this as well. Is I don't just work with VistA. I've worked with a number of other solutions, and so of which is it makes you a valuable contributor. They leveraged as an example the training, but essentially build their own team, and they've now established their own nonprofit um, that's driving the implementation and support of VistA, and they were able to do that in the space of about a year and a half, which is quite interesting. Installation times, maybe Matt, I can give an idea of what it's like for a hospital environment. Matt, you've got the most experience from a clinic environment. What would you say the installation time would be for VistA?
Well, it depends on when you first download an open source of VistA. It's basically like getting a, a free, very expensive car, but all in pieces. It's very valuable, but it's not very useful until it's clinically configured. So usually your first experience takes really 2 years that we had a very mature product that was functioning more like the VA functions in terms of great templates and those sorts of things, which all really need to be configured. So once that happens, then we were able to do them in 6 months or so. And we were looking at a 3-month implementation process, but the best we were doing was 4 to 6 months as an outpatient. And you can go ahead and talk about the inpatient experience, Joseph.
Yes, in the inpatient experience, I think you're looking at a minimum of 8 months for a small, 8 months to a year for a small facility. I think um, in my experience has mostly been outside of the United States where we've got other issues, and in that environment, we're looking at least a year because there are other factors that you obviously need to consider. Um, and that actually reminds me of something extremely important that I want to share, and that's uh, there's a huge temptation because VistA because it's an open source solution to modify the code and change things that you don't like when you first see it. There are some parts of VistA that uh, are not pretty. I mean, there's still a fair bit of roll and scroll or character-based interfaces. Those are um, there are quite a few efforts now going on to uh, convert those to web-based interfaces. And Jordan's an example of where that's happening. But the point I want to make is, I think it's extremely important when you implement to make minimal changes in the beginning, because first of all, the key thing is that there's a lot of wisdom in and experience in the way VistA works today, and it's important not to um, get bogged down in adding other layers of complexity to the implementation. A, and then B, it's through the experience of using the software that you'll have a better idea of where the really important changes need to be made. So that's the kind of advice I'd have, and that will then limit both your costs, reduce your cost and your time of implementation, and make it more of a clinical intervention rather than a technology uh, project, which is really what VistA is all about in the end. Question of smallest headcount needed to support a VistA deployment. Um, Matt, what would you say it's in a clinic setting? But
Well, I know the smallest one that I'm aware of, I'm involved in, and it's basically a it's an outpatient facility with 4 providers, 4 FTEs, 4 providers, and basically I do all of the clinical configuration. We host the servers on, uh, for a fee, and that's not really done by us. And then the technical piece is done by a small firm of probably that firm probably has about 10 people, but they really only assign a couple people to it. So that's that's the smallest I can.
If any queries, you can also email us at the links that you can see there, info@ehealthopensource.org. Please visit ehealthopensource.org as well, the website, for further information about our future webinar sessions. I thank you all again for your time and hope you found this session useful. And take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
thank you.